The wind moved softly across the high desert plain, carrying with it the smell of sagebrush and distant rain. Dusk had settled over the Apache camp like a gray-blue blanket, and small cooking fires flickered to life one by one, their smoke curling into the cooling sky. The lone cowboy stood just beyond the edge of the camp, his hat in his hands, his shoulders stiff with a tension he couldn't name. His name was Caleb Mercer, a drifter who'd followed a wounded horse into these lands 3 days ago and never expected to still be here. He had grown up among rough men who taught him to take what he wanted, to never show fear, to never show softness. But nothing in his life had prepared him for the quiet dignity of this place, or for her. Her name was Ayanna. She stood a few steps away from him now, her dark hair braided loosely down her back, her eyes reflecting the firelight. She had brought him water earlier. Then food. Then, finally, she had come back alone. They had barely spoken. Words felt too fragile, too heavy. Caleb cleared his throat. "I don't want to cause trouble," he said, his voice low. "I should probably be gone by morning." Ayanna studied him in silence. Her expression was calm, but there was something searching in her eyes, something deeper than curiosity. "You are not a threat," she said at last. Her English was slow but careful. "You did not run when my brother pointed a gun at you." Caleb gave a weak smile. "Figured I'd already used up all my running for one lifetime." The fire popped between them. She took a small step closer. Then another. The space between them closed in a way that made his heart start to hammer. "I have watched you," she said. "You sit alone. You look like someone who lost something important." Caleb swallowed. He hadn't meant to come here with grief in his eyes, but grief had a way of leaking through no matter how tightly a man tried to seal it away. "My wife died 2 winters ago," he said quietly. "Fever. Took her in 3 days." Ayanna's face softened. "In my people," she said, "we believe grief is a spirit that sits beside you until you are ready to let it go." He nodded. "Feels about right." Silence stretched again. This one felt different, thick, weighted. Ayanna looked away, toward the fire. Then she drew a slow breath and turned back to him. "If you want to, do it," she said carefully, as if each word had been chosen from a dangerous place. "You may." The sentence hit Caleb like a sudden blow. His mind raced. Did he understand her right? His instincts, old, rough, learned in saloons and lonely nights, rose up in him like a reflex. But something else rose with them. A deep, unexpected sense of fear. He took a step back. "No," he said quickly. "I'm not here to. I don't want to disrespect you or your people." Ayanna's eyes widened slightly. Then something like relief flickered across her face. "You are different than the traders," she said softly. Caleb let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. "I don't want to take something you don't truly want to give," he said. "And I don't want to be something you regret." She studied him for a long moment. "You misunderstand," she said. "I am not offering myself because I am forced. I choose." That word, choose, echoed in his chest. "Why?" he asked quietly. She hesitated. Then she answered honestly. "Because I am tired of being invisible," she said. "Because I am promised to a man who drinks too much and strikes his horses. Because you looked at me like I was a person, not a thing." Caleb felt something inside him twist painfully. He stepped closer again, slowly this time, as if approaching a frightened animal. "Ayanna," he said, "I don't want to be a mistake in your life." She lifted her chin. "Then do not be a mistake," she said. "Simply, be a moment that matters." The fire crackled loudly, as if reacting to her words. Caleb closed his eyes for a second. Every part of him wanted to run. Every part of him wanted to stay. He opened his eyes again. "Then if anything happens," he said, "it happens with respect. And only if you're truly sure." She nodded once. "I am sure." He reached out, not touching her yet, just letting his hand hover inches from her arm. "You can say stop," he said. "At any time." Her lips curved into a small, serious smile. "You are kinder than you think, cowboy." He finally touched her arm, lightly, like the brush of a feather. She did not flinch. They moved closer, the space between them vanishing not in a rush, but in a careful surrender. When he leaned down, he paused again, searching her eyes. She nodded. Their kiss was gentle, awkward, trembling. It wasn't hunger. It wasn't conquest. It was two lonely souls reaching across a quiet chasm. They broke apart, foreheads resting together. "This doesn't make me your rescuer," he murmured. "And it doesn't make you mine." "I know," she said. "But it makes this night ours." They walked together toward the edge of the camp, toward the darkened slope where the stars shone brighter and the firelight couldn't reach. And when the night finally closed around them, what happened was not wild or loud or shameful. It was slow, careful, full of pauses and whispered reassurances. When it was over, they lay side by side, looking up at the wide, endless sky. Caleb felt something unfamiliar in his chest. Peace. Ayanna turned her head toward him. "Will you leave in the morning?" she asked. He thought about the open road. About the grief spirit that had sat beside him for 2 long years. "I don't know," he admitted. "But for the first time in a long while, I'm not in a hurry." She smiled. That night, neither of them belonged to the world they had come from. And that, more than anything else, was the unthinkable thing the lone cowboy had done. He had let himself feel again. Morning came softly to the high desert, the sky paling from indigo to rose as the sun crept over the distant ridges. A thin frost coated the grass near the creek, and the Apache camp stirred awake in quiet rhythms, women stepping from lodges, children rubbing sleep from their eyes, men tending horses and checking rifles. Caleb Mercer sat on a smooth stone near the water's edge, staring into the slow-moving current. He hadn't slept much, not because of what had happened the night before, but because of what it meant. The weight of it pressed on his chest heavier with every passing minute. He heard footsteps behind him and turned. Ayanna approached, wrapped in a light wool shawl. Her hair was loose this morning, falling in dark waves over her shoulders. She stopped a few steps away, studying his face like she was trying to read something written there. "You look like a man waiting to be punished," she said quietly. Caleb gave a small, tired smile. "Feels about right." She came and sat beside him, close enough that their shoulders almost touched, but not quite. "For my people," she said, "a night shared does not mean what it means to yours." "I figured as much," he replied. "But it still means something to me." She glanced at him. "What does it mean?" He hesitated. "It means I don't want to walk away like nothing happened. And it means I don't know what the right thing is anymore." Ayanna looked down at her hands. "My uncle has already noticed," she said. "He saw us walking back to the camp before sunrise." Caleb's stomach tightened. "Is that bad?" "He is not a cruel man," she said. "But he is a careful one. And careful men ask dangerous questions." They sat in silence, listening to the creek. Finally, Caleb spoke. "If your people want me gone, I'll leave. No trouble, no bitterness." She shook her head. "You misunderstand. This is not only about you leaving." She stood. "Come," she said. "You should meet my uncle." The council fire burned low though it was barely mid-morning. 3 elders sat on blankets arranged in a half-circle. Ayanna's uncle, Nanton, sat in the center. His hair was streaked with gray, his face carved by years of sun and wind. His eyes were sharp and unreadable. Caleb removed his hat and held it against his chest. No one spoke for a long moment. Then Nanton broke the silence. "You are the man who followed a wounded horse into our land," he said. "Yes, sir. You are the man my niece spent the night with." Caleb swallowed. "Yes, sir." A murmur rippled through the small gathering of onlookers. Nanton raised one hand, silencing them. "Why?" he asked simply. Caleb didn't look at Ayanna. "I won't lie," he said. "But I won't dishonor her either. I treated her with respect. I didn't force anything, and I didn't promise anything I can't give." Nanton studied him for a long time. "My niece was promised to another man," he said. Caleb nodded. "She told me. And you still stayed." "Yes, sir." Another long pause. Nanton finally turned to Ayanna. "Why did you choose him?" She lifted her chin. "Because he saw me. Because he listened. Because he didn't take what was offered like it was owed to him." The old man's gaze softened slightly. He turned back to Caleb. "In my people," Nanton said, "a man who touches what belongs to another must either leave forever, or take responsibility." Caleb's heart thudded hard. "What does responsibility mean?" he asked. Nanton's eyes locked onto his. "It means you stay. You work. You earn your place. And you prove you are not a man who uses women like cups to be thrown away." Ayanna's breath caught. Caleb didn't answer immediately. He thought of the road. The freedom. The loneliness. Then he thought of her. "I'll stay," he said. A murmur spread again, this time heavier. Nanton nodded once. "Then you are no longer a guest," he said. "You are a man on trial." The man Ayanna had been promised to arrive 2 days later. His name was Tomas. He rode into camp drunk. Caleb was repairing a broken fence post when he heard shouting. By the time he reached the center of camp, Tomas was already pointing at Ayanna, spitting words slurred with whiskey. "She belongs to me," Tomas snarled. "You don't get to change that." Caleb stepped between them. "She belongs to herself," he said evenly. Tomas laughed and shoved him. Caleb staggered back but didn't fall. The camp went silent. Tomas swung. Caleb caught his wrist and twisted just enough to make him yelp. "Leave," Caleb said, "or we can do this until one of us can't stand." Tomas stared at him, then looked around at the watching faces. He yanked his arm free. "This isn't over," he growled, stumbling back toward his horse. That night, Ayanna found Caleb sharpening his knife. "You shouldn't have done that," she said softly. "I couldn't let him talk to you like that." She sat beside him. "If he challenges you," she said, "my uncle will allow it." Caleb looked at her. "I'm not here to fight your battles." Her eyes shone. "I know. That's why this is harder." The challenge came at dawn. 2 men stood with rifles to mark the ground. No guns allowed, only fists. Caleb and Tomas faced each other in the dust. The first punch knocked Caleb's lip open. The second dropped Tomas to one knee. They fought until both were bleeding and barely standing. Finally, Tomas fell and didn't get up. Nanton stepped forward. "It is finished," he said. Tomas was carried away. That evening, Caleb sat with ice on his ribs. Ayanna knelt in front of him, cleaning the cut on his face. "You could have left," she whispered. He winced. "Yeah, I could have." She met his eyes. "Why didn't you?" He took a slow breath. "Because running stopped working for me." She rested her forehead against his. Outside, the desert darkened. And for the first time, Caleb didn't feel like a drifter. He felt like a man who had chosen where he stood.